Okay, we have discussed all of the French Revolution, shall we say, um, the time when France is still a republic, um, gradually moves to dictatorship with the rise of Napoleon. As we discussed, Napoleon becomes part of the Directory and then moves into complete power by overthrowing his partners on the Directory. So a little bit on him, and I've mentioned a few of these in class already. He's born in Corsica, French island in the Mediterranean Sea. Successful military leader in battles versus the British and also versus Austria, especially Austria. Between 1789 and 99, he serves in the revolutionary forces of France. He distinguishes himself in battle, rising to the rank of general, and then commander of all the French forces in Italy. Becomes a hero to the French people because he wins. And he's very good at public relations because he hides his losses or blames them on other people, so he advances in the military rank very quickly. 1799, he takes over France in what's called a coup d'etat, a non-violent overthrow of the Directory. He was a member of the Directory and gradually just takes over for everybody, and he's given the title of first consul of France, harkening back to the days of Rome, when Rome had the consul system, and keeps up the charade of a republic for a little while longer, roughly 5 years. In 1802, he names himself first consul for life, much like his idol Julius Caesar did. In 1803, he declares war on England, and in 1805, he takes the title of Emperor of France and absolute power. He actually crowns himself. He takes the title from the crown from the Pope and crowns himself, saying, "I bow to no man," and he promises order, security, and efficiency. Napoleon had great support from the French people because of his policies. First of all, he modernizes France. He brings in new industry and brings France from a very agricultural based system into the new industrial age. He builds roads, he builds canals, and he establishes public schools. And he restores order. More than anything, France had been chaotic for 10 years. The people were tired of it. Napoleon brings peace, at least internal peace, because he will be at war for the next 15 years with a few gaps. All right. So, one of the things he establishes is what is called the Napoleonic Code. And this becomes really the basis for all the law systems of Europe from 1800 forward. With the exception of a few places like Nazi Germany and stuff like that. But as Europe moves towards democracy, the Napoleonic Code really becomes to the fore and becomes kind of the model for the rest of European government. It's a new law code, and it's one of his most lasting reforms. First point is equality for all citizens before the law. It mandates religious toleration. Achievement is based on merit, not on genes. It wipes out the old feudal system where all you had to do was be the oldest son and you got all the power. Women do lose power under this. They are not considered citizens. Well, Napoleon is very much a chauvinist, and he feels that women don't need to be in charge in any way, shape, or form. Okay. So between 1804 and 1814, Napoleon wins a series of successful wars and creates a French empire, and I'll show you a map in a few minutes. He expanded French lands into the Netherlands, into Belgium, into parts of Italy, and most of Germany, what is modern-day Germany. He forces treaties onto Austria, Prussia, and Russia. He was at war almost certainly almost constantly during his reign. And he believed in a militaristic society, a very military-based society. His solution to most international problems is military force, and this will eventually lead to his downfall. Anybody that crosses him, the French army is going to show up on your doorstep. Okay. In 1806, after a crushing defeat by the British Navy of the French Navy in one of the most famous naval battles of all time, the Battle of Trafalgar, where the British used some amazing tactics. We don't really need to go into it, and they wipe out the French Navy. Napoleon just comes up with a plan to destroy the English economy because Britain is really the bank for all of the other guys who are fighting the French. And it's trying to make France supreme in Europe on the continent. He knows he can't get to France. He doesn't have to England. He doesn't have a navy. So he establishes an embargo or a ban on all English goods. He doesn't allow any of the territory he controls to import British goods. This will cause future problems. Okay, so this is Napoleon's empire. Okay, the dark blue is France proper. Those are lands that are controlled by Napoleon. The lighter blue is the colors that's the places that Napoleon establishes kind of almost puppet governments. They're allied to the French. They're controlled by Napoleon. The pink is his allies, and obviously the brown is everybody else. Okay, and you can see the battles that he fought on there. Okay, in 1812, he catches Russia violating the continental system. So he declares war on Russia and he invades from Poland with his grand army of over 600,000 men. His army is destroyed.
Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, his army is destroyed. Only 100,000 men survive. And the reasons this happened is, first of all, the harsh Russian winter. Think about traveling through Syracuse for the entire winter on horseback with no heat, no cars, no nothing. And you're going to spend months outside. He overextends his supply lines. Okay, moves way beyond there. The Russians use guerrilla warfare and what's called a scorched earth policy. Basically, anything that's not nailed down, the Russians take everything with them, and anything that's left behind, they burn. Crops, farms, barns, anything the French could use to help them, they destroy. Okay, and you can see here on the chart kind of the progress of Napoleon's army, and I'm just going to put the X here so you know what I'm talking about. The blue line is the number of troops he has, and as he marches towards Moscow, you can see it getting skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. And then the green line is the invasion route, and you can see that gets skinnier and skinnier and skinnier till almost nobody makes it back to the jumping off point. Napoleon then marches back to Paris with the Russians on his heels and is eventually, later in 1813 and 14, forced to give up the throne. Okay, so he abdicates his throne because of pressure from Britain, Russia, Austria, and Prussia in 1814, and he's exiled to the island of Elba, just off the coast of Italy, not too far from his home of Corsica. Not really an effective place to send somebody that you can think might be trying to dominate Europe, because he's still got enough friends out there that he can get out. He does. He escapes Elba, returns in 1815, so his exile lasts maybe a year, for 100 days to gain back power. He's greeted as a hero in France, because France has been forced to sign a very harsh peace treaty, and he gathers speed. He's put back in power, and finally in June 1815, he fights a battle at Waterloo in Belgium. It's a very famous battle, the Battle of Waterloo, and he loses. After this battle, he is captured and he is sent to his final exile in St. Helena, which is a small island out in the Atlantic. You can see it here on the other map. If you want to exile somebody, this is the place to do it. A tiny little rock in the middle of the South Atlantic where it's very hard to get out. And the only ships that come there are British ships, your enemies. So it's very, very much harder to escape from. If they had put them there in the first place, they might not have had the problem. Okay. Results of Napoleon. In France, French government is re-centralized. Establishes a state-run public education system. He establishes a uniform and just legal system, a fair system of tax collection, and he sells, most famously for America, the Louisiana Purchase to the United States under Thomas Jefferson in 1803 because he was desperate for cash. In Europe, he rewrites the map of Europe. The ideals of the French Revolution are spread throughout Europe. He introduces public education and the Napoleonic Code throughout Europe, and he promotes the ideas of militarism, nationalism, democracy. All of these things will impact the next century in Europe and will eventually lead up to the cataclysms of World War I and II because of the ideas of militarism, nationalism, but also the ideas of independence. Okay, so now you have a Google form on Google Classroom. Please do that and submit it.